Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Michelle Dutrissa and I'm a demonstrator in New South Wales, Australia. Okay, so this is the card we're going to be looking at today, and this is a pinwheel card. Now I have made this to fit into our envelopes that we do use here in Australia. So I've just got a Stampin' Up envelope here, one of our standard ones, and if we lay that flat you can see that that will fit beautifully in that envelope. It's not a very tall card because what I've done is I've used the width of the card rather than going the height. I have got one which is partially done here, which is going in the other direction. So I haven't finished this one here, but you can still see it works out very similar. I will put all the dimensions and everything in this card in my blog, and hopefully I'll have that all up and running by the end of this weekend, and that too will also fit inside our standard envelope. I have seen a lot of these done on the internet where they've actually made them bigger and not for our Stampin' Up envelopes. So I just thought I'd try one or try these two to fit into our envelopes. With this one you can see you don't have as much room for decoration, so you really do have to think about how you're going to decorate this card because there's not much room, but you do have a little bit of hangout room while it's lying flat. And on the back here again I've put a designer series paper here, but you can leave that blank, and I'm sort of thinking now I probably should have left that blank because with this card here I've actually put a section here to write on the back of my card, whereas this one here, if I put anything in here, it is going to be very long and thin. So I probably have to rethink this one a little bit. You'll also notice with these two cards that the center of my cards are a little bit different. This one here is about 1.5 centimeters square, and just let me check. This one here is 1.5 centimeters square, and this one here is just around about a centimeter. So there are slightly different measurements, and the reason why this one here I've done much smaller in the center of the card is because it gave me a wider depth to actually decorate. So the bigger this square here in the middle, the less area you're going to have probably to decorate this thinner side. Not that we usually do decorate that one, but it's going to come out further. So it's just a few things to think about when you're designing these. It was a lot of trial and error, but I will put the measurements up for both. If you did make that a little bit bigger, as I said, on this one, you're just going to make this section, this panel here, a lot narrower because it's going to come out further. So it's really up to you how you want to play that one. But today we're going to be looking at this card. So let me just pop that one to one side, and you'll find more information about that one on my blog. And this is the one we're going to be using today. Now with this one we're also using the stamp set. I just got to work out where I've actually sat it. It's just underneath here, which is Flowers of Friendship stamp set. We're also using the punch, and I'm going to show you how I punched and stamped my flowers and coloured them in, also using the Stamparatus as well. So let's get started and I'll show you what products we need for this card. So I'm going to pop my card to one side, and here's all our cardstock. And let me just go through with you what I'm using. Now I have taken a piece of, for this card, a piece of A4 cardstock and cut it in half at 10.5 centimeters. So that's taking it down the longest side. So if I grab a piece of cardstock, sorry, I'm just feeling like I've just been busy all morning, so I'm sort of running a little bit behind, so I'm really sorry. So I've taken a piece of A4 cardstock and I've cut it straight down in half lengthwise, which will give me 2 pieces at 10.5 centimeters, and that will give me the depth of my card this way. And you can get these cards out of one sheet of your A4 cardstock, and you may need just a few scraps after that for punching out your flowers and whatnot else. So the measurements we've got to start off with, our main piece is 10.5 centimeters by 14.5, and I'm going to score that at 7.5, 9.5, 11.5 and 13.5, and I will go through that with you when I score this again. Then you need 3 pieces at 7.5 by 10.5 centimeters, and then you need some cardstock to decorate our card. Now what I've done here, I've used one of the designer series papers from our Sale-A-bration Catalogue, and basically what I've done is I've used 3 sets or 2 sets of each one of these designs. So on the front here I've got this floral here, so I need 2 of those. Let me just bring that out. So there's 2 lots of measurements. There's 7 centimeters by 10 and 5 centimeters by 10. So you've got a piece for here, and then when I flip this over I've got another piece here. So I've chosen 4 designs and I've cut out 1 in each, and you'll see as we position those around how they fit into the card. And I've had to really think carefully when I put this card together, because I have for this fairly dark design here in the front, and then I've just put lighter ones at the back. Then if I flip it over, I've got my dark stripe at the back and I've got my lighter designs on the sides. Turn it again, and again I've got my lighter one here and 2 darker ones here. Now with this one here, where you can do your writing on the back of the card shows through a little bit. So maybe that's something, you know, you don't have to put a designer series paper on the back. You could just leave it blank. But just remember that when you fold this flat, that you're going to see not only this portion here, but you're going to see whatever is happening here. So whatever you put on this card, you want to be able to have it all working together. So this happened by fluke, that when I put the flowers on here and then the flowers poking out there at that edge actually complements what I've also got on there. So that worked out really well. And then on this one here, probably not so well. But I mean, it's really up to you how much, you know, sort of you want to put into this. I'm actually quite happy with the way this came out. But yeah, just think about where you're going to position, what papers you're going to use, because you do want it to work all quite well. Going back to this one here, when I did this one with the stripes, I wanted all my stripes to sort of to go in line with each other. So as I turn it around, you're going to get 2 lots of pink and a stripe there. This one here, I've got my 2 lots of pink on the side and a stripe. It all still coordinates quite well. And then again, there's my stripes, and my stripes are all lining up. Now, unfortunately, the only thing I didn't think about was one of these stripes, which is this one here, doesn't line up, but it doesn't correspond with any other stripe on any other side. And the way you can get away with that, when you get your designer series paper, especially with the stripe, or even this one here, you can see that I've lined up my designs across, and that's by just taking my 12 by 12 paper and cutting it in half at 6.5, and then cutting it down so everything is all in line. So if I was going to be using, say for example, the designer series paper here, whoops, with this one here, because it's a stripe. Now on this particular card I've used my stripe going up and down, but if the card I'm going to do today, I'm going to have my stripe going across. So what I did was I cut this, say my 10 centimeters across there, and then cut all my pieces that way, and that will make sure that as you go around, those stripes are all going to be lining up with each other. And you'll see that happen when I put my other card together. So just some of the things you need to think about when you're working with your designer series paper. Also look at the fact too, some of these papers have got a one-way design, so you want all your leaves going in the same direction. So make sure you sort of think about where you're cutting everything. Don't just grab a whole stack of scraps and cut it out of that, unless it's pretty much an all-over type design, and it doesn't really matter which direction you're going. So I hope that's just a little bit of helpful information for you there. Okay, hi Vicky, how are you? And Val, hi, you're watching too. Please let me know where you're from. It's really good to know where people are visiting me from. Okay, so I'm going to pop all these pieces to one side. Yes, I've got 4 of that one, and I've got my 4 of that one, and we're going to start putting this card together. So as I said, what we do have to do is we need to score some of our cardstock. So with this big piece here is the piece we're going to score, and I'm going to bring out my cutting board and we're going to score this. So I'm going to remove my cutting blade down to the bottom, so it's right out of my road. So we've got 10.5 centimeters is our depth of our card, and 14.5 is our width. And we're going to start by scoring this at 7.5, and then I'm scoring at increments of 1.5. So I've got 7.5, then I'm going to score that at, increments of 2. So I'm going to score that at 9.5, 11.5, 13.5. Just making sure that's nice and tight across the top. And then that's just going to leave us a little bit at the end for our tab that we're going to fold in. So that's our scoring there. So now we're just going to take our bone folder and we're just going to fold across all our score lines and burnish them all really well. Yep, there is one more. Burnish that one as well. Now you can use your multi-purpose glue, and as a general rule that's what I like to use, but with something like this I found a lot easier to use my tear and tape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put tearing tape on the end here, which is my tab, and then I'm going to put tearing tape on the sides of that square, that box we're forming in the middle. And I'm putting 2 pieces, and I'll just show you what I mean. So there's our tab that we've made, which is going to adhere our box together. And I've got a piece of tearing tape there. Then if I turn this over, I've got 2 pieces because I want to have this secure both sides of that fold line. And I'm going to do that with each sides of that, so when that forms a square, each one of these will have tape already on it. So we just go ahead and pop all that tape down. So it's just going to make sure that everything is really secure. As I said, you can use your multi-purpose glue. And I'm just going to burnish all that down with my bone folder. Now we're just going to tear off the first one, which is on that tab piece. That's all we're tearing off for the moment. And I'm going to fold that in. So I've just flattened it at the moment, and I'm folding that in, and I'm just going to take this piece here, this side. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 folds, score lines. I'm flattening the first and I'm folding it at that second score line, and then I'm just going to bring that across and rub and give that a really good rub down with my bone folder, just to make sure that that is all secure. And that's going to form, whoops, doesn't stand too well on its own, that's going to form the base of our card. So that's where we're starting from. Okay, so now to add all of these pieces to our pinwheel. So I'm going to start off with this, and I'm just going to flatten that down. So there's my my base of my card. I'm going to flatten that down like that and just take off the next 2 pieces of tape, if it's going to come for me. I'm going to take the next piece of our pinwheel, butt that right in there quite firmly against what I've already folded in there, lining it up across the bottom, and then again closing that up. And that's how we put in our second panel for our pinwheel. Now our next 2 ones are done a little bit differently, because this time that can't fold over. Okay, the reason why this one could fold over is we had more score lines, but we've sort of now run out of our score lines. We've got 1 here and 1 on the edge, but we can still do this. So again, I'm just going to peel off the backings of my tape, just the next lot. I'm only just doing one side at a time. Take our next one. Again, I'm going to butt it right up and line it up with along the edge and butt it as close as I possibly can. And I'm just going to pick it up this time and then put my finger underneath. So I'm bringing that piece forward and going across like that, just making sure all of those stay nice and firmly together. And then again run that over with my bone folder just to make sure that's well adhered there. Okay, 1 left to go. So again, peel off that backing, take our last panel, again line that up, making sure that's all nice and firm together, lifting that up, releasing that back one. Whoops, just make sure that that's all nice and lined up, and then again pushing it in. Before you close that one, just make sure that you have got everything nice and lined. That's the one thing, when you do use multi-purpose glue, you do have that little bit of time to manipulate things a little bit. With this you don't really. But anyway, it's all done. So there's the basis of our card. Okay, so now we can decorate. So which one do you want to use as your front? Well, I like to have, if I'm going to sit that next to me, I want one of these panels, the longer panels, because you've got a long side and you've got a short side, to be my front of my card. If I'm go around this card, I've got a cut edge here, which is where I've got a panel that we attached on. Fold it there. I've got another cut edge there. Open and fold, another cut edge there. And this one here is the folded edge, and that's where I'm going to make the front of my card. So basically this piece here is the original piece that went around. So that is going to be what I'm going to call the front of my card, and then that will be the back of my card. So I'm going to start with the front, and we're going to take our pieces of designer series paper and we're going to start adhering them to my card. So this is the piece Oops, that one's in the wrong pile. So this is the piece I'm going to use at my front, and I've cut this down just 1/2 centimetre, or you would use 1/4 inch if you're in America, smaller than my base. So my base here ended up being at 7.5 centimetres by 10.5. So I've made these 7 by 10, and I'm just going to use my multi-purpose glue and adhere, put some of this on the back and adhere this down. So there we go. Whoops, a little bit of glue must have oozed out. Just hold that there for a couple of seconds just to let that dry. Now I've got these 2 pieces on this side. So as I said before, think about what you're going to put on either side, because you want it to enhance this front panel, if anything. So that's why I've sort of gone to my spot rather than another floral. And I didn't want to go to the darker stripe. You could, because if you had a darker one there and dark, it just doesn't look as nice. Again, even with the stripe, you know, you sort of wanted lighter. If you make that a lighter color, then you could put your darker stripe in behind. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a spot like I did with my first card, and I've got the thin smaller piece here. So this one here measures the 5 centimeters by 10 centimeters, because this panel here is actually 5.5 centimeters wide, and we're going to pop that on there and adhere that one to there. Now I'm going to do this one here, because that's going to be my larger one in the spot. Just love these designer series papers in the black and white. It's so good for this sort of thing, and you could add your pops of colour elsewhere, or you could even colour your cardstock a little bit. Okay, so that's now giving me really nice contrast, and it's actually making this piece here stand out. So we're going to turn this around, and I've got that piece there, so we've still got to put the corresponding floral piece in, the smaller piece, and I'm going to pop that one right there, because as you can see, I'll just move these out of the road, sorry, I've got my darker floral peeking out there as well. So just so it all looks like it builds in together and works well together, coordinates. Now when I was putting this together initially, I left that piece and I went straight to my back. So I'm working from my front to my back, and then my sides are sort of fitting in between. So this is my back, and as I know, I already want to put that piece into there. So I'm going to pop this one in here. Hi Lenny, how are you? Okay, so let's just pop that in there. So that's our back panel, and then I'm going to pop that little floral just there. And so that coordinates, I'm going to pop this floral here. So I'm sort of just continuing that light dark theme all around. And if we keep turning, we've got one left, which is going to be our stripe, which is going to go there. Okay, so that is our card. So we have our front, our side, our back, our other side, and we're back to our front again. Okay, so the other thing that I've done is for our back, I've taken a piece of your basic white, and using the stitched rectangular dies, or the Stitch So Sweetly dies, and one of the scalloped stitched rectangular dies, I'm going to adhere that just there. I am just going to put just adhesive in the center because I do want to maybe tuck a few little things in. Now you don't, with this style of card, you don't really need to have a lot of decoration, and particularly not a lot of decoration in at those side panels. You can decorate your front like I've done here, and I've actually used dimensionals in there, but with your sides here, these are just glued straight down because I didn't want a lot of bulk on my sides. I didn't want to bulk this card up too much, so most of anything that's bulky is going to be on the front of my card or on the back of my card, because I've used a couple little dimensionals there as well. So let's pop our card to one side, put the lid on that glue, and let's have a look at what we're going to decorate our card with. So I've got a piece of scrap piece of basic white here, and I do have a scrap piece of basic black, and what we're going to do is stamp our sentiment. Now I'm just keeping this very neutral, just doing all black and white, and I've taken just a simple sentiment, and I'm just going to stamp that in my Memento black. And then we are using the, popped it on the wrong side, double oval punch. We're going to cut a scallop punch from our basic black, and then we're going to cut the smaller scallop punch with our sentiment on the inside of that. Pop my lid on that before I put my hand in it. And we can adhere the sentiment to our scalloped oval. Just like that. So our flowers, and as I said before, I'm using the Flowers of Friendship dies and the punch. But what I did with that was I just, because I wanted so many flowers, I just got a piece of basic white and just punched out a whole stack of flowers. I mean, I know it's a little bit of wastage there. I'll probably go back at some stage and punch out some more. And then I cut one of the pieces to make myself a template. It's not the simplest way of doing things, but anyway, it worked for me today because I wanted to cut quite a few flowers and leaves. So what I've done is I've taken my template, I've laid it down on my Stamparatus, and I've fitted the stamps here together by popping them inside of the holes left when I punched them out. It was a little bit fiddly getting it all, and I did one stamp at a time instead of getting them all to sit in there in the right position. So now what I've done, because I've stamped out a whole stack of these just blank ones out of my basic white, I can go around and slip those into that template that I've made. Now you may have to move these around a little bit until you get them into the right position, or even flip it over. So we're just going to pop that one into there. And I need another little one. And that one is going to fit in there. Now this is just really good if you're doing multiples, and then ink up a stamp pad and stamp. Now they do fit fairly tightly against each other in there, so you do have to sort of maybe make sure that they're sort of like, these two flowers are very crammed into each other. You might even have to trim it down a little bit, and I've just got one spot which refuses to ink up. I'm going to re-ink that. See if I can get that one to ink. That's better. Okay, so you can go through and just do that to all your flowers. And I just want to do a couple more of that little flower, because I know that before, because I've stamped all of them already. That one little spot just refused to ink up before. Ink a couple more in that smaller flower. Oops, probably a little bit too much ink on that one. It's okay. Okay, I'm happy with those. That's enough. As I said, I have already pre-stamped some of those before, so I'm just going to pop that now to one side. I'll clean that off a bit later on. And let me bring in all these ones that I have already stamped. So I've got all of these that I have already stamped for us. So I'm just going to colour some of these in, just using your blends. And I'm just doing these very quickly, taking the brush tip and just going around. Now the colours I'm using here is Calypso Coral. I'm just using the light one here. I'm not colouring it in fully. I just want a few lines, because I like to keep sort of some of that white area. I'm just making this quite liberal. I do have a few more here. And I'm just going to take some of the darker. Just add a few of those lines, not being overly precise. Now I do want to do one more, because I do want to have about 4 of each, I think. And I'm just going to put some Daffodil Delight in the center of these. Just give us some centers. And then we're going to do the same thing with our smaller flowers. Oops, but the brush end, it might be a bit quicker. And I'm actually using with this one here, I'm using the Fresh Freesia. So I'm not worrying too much about the colouring in. Just want to really just add some bit of colour. So it's just not all black and white. I've got 4 of those. So I hope you all are having a lovely day today. It's a bit cool here in the Southern Highlands. And I'm just going to use the light on this one. Still the daffodil, but just using the lighter tone on that one there. And then what we have left are our leaves, and I'm just using Old Olive. It's always been my go-to green. Again, using that brush nib. I'm just going to add just a couple of brushes. Hoping I've got enough leaves here, because I probably could have done a few more, but anyway, we'll see how we go. Just put a couple of highlights with the darker Old Olive. Whoops. Okay, so let's start putting this together. So let's pop these to one side for the moment. We'll pop all these over to here. And we need some dimensionals. And I'm just going to pop a couple of dimensionals there on the back of that one. And just in the center, so I can then maybe tuck a couple of flowers in and around it. So we'll go back to our card here. Let's pop our sentiment on. So this time I think I'm just going to pop this a little bit more in the middle, but down towards the bottom, but just got a mark on there, probably got it from my hand, knowing me. Okay, so that can sit there like that. And then I'm going to take one of these larger flowers and adhere that using some multi-purpose glue. And again, just putting glue in the center, just so then if I want to tuck something in underneath it or around it, I can. You don't need too much glue. Just popping that in there, and it doesn't matter if it goes out a little bit. And I'm going to pop this one here. I'm going to tuck this one. Probably need more glue onto the side, onto the petals. Just then that can actually adhere, because that's sort of sitting on top of that. Need some leaves, so we're just going to tuck a couple of these in here. Underneath there. Now this is where if you've got tweezers, can come in handy. Now I'm just going to pop this one. No, I did this the other day and I hadn't even planned it, but this time I'm going to be planning it a little bit more. And I'm going to pop him just down into that corner there. And then another small leaf. I think I will need to stamp up some more small leaves. Pop that one. Whoops, just underneath there. More glue onto that one. Actually, I might put a mini dimensional on that back of that one. Just popping it onto that petal. So I put a bit of glue on there, and I'm going to actually. So I've just put a dimensional onto one petal and a bit of glue on the center there, and I'm going to. Just wondering, I might have changed my mind. I'm going to take that off. I might use that on a different one. I'm going to put glue on the back here. Go back to my original plan. Sometimes these ideas don't work until you put things together. I'm going to pop that one underneath. We might come back to that one in a minute. And I'm going to turn this over to my back. And I'm going to take this one. I'm going to pop another dimensional. There. Pop him there. Just like that. that one in there. So let me just go back. I'm going to leave that one for that like that at the moment. So I've got that one. I've got that one there, which is just a single flower. And then as I open it to this side, I've got that one there. And we're going to pop, I think, maybe up in there somewhere. But again, I'm not putting dimensionals behind this because I don't want bulk up here. I'm just going to glue this one down. And then add a couple of leaves in here. So let's have a look. I think we need another leaf here. Just one in there. And I've got, do I have, there it is. Sorry, it's just looking for the white. But you could also use even the smoky slate could look quite good in that, and a bit of baker's twine. Just tie a little bow. I didn't do this on my other card, so this is just something, a little bit of added extra. Actually, I think I'd like to do a bigger bow than that. So I'm going to take some baker's twine. I'm going to take quite a bit here. Just run my finger down that a couple of times just to straighten that out a little bit. I'm going to tie a double bow. That's better. Cut off that excess. Now, grab my glue dots. I'm going to add a glue dot to the back of that. Oops. Pick up my glue dot as well as my bow. And I'm going to tuck him just under there. Now I might just trim those off a little bit more. Scissors probably need a good clean. Tend to get glue and everything all over them, so let's see if these will cut a bit better for me. There we go. Just flatten that down, that knot there down a little bit. So let's have a look, see what we think. So we've got our front of our card, our side of our card, our back, and my original one I had a flower up there, and I think I will put another flower up there. I'm almost out of glue in that bottle. And we've just got one little leaf left. Now you could stamp some more leaves and add some more leaves to this if you wish. And I'm just going to pop that one just underneath there like that. So let me just remove some of the bits and pieces. So there's our front of our card, our first side, our back, our second side, and back to our front again, and that all sits up like that in that beautiful pinwheel card. So I hope you've enjoyed that. As I said, I will put all my measurements and everything. So I'll put it down so you can see it a bit better. I will put all the measurements and everything that I've used for this card on my blog, so you can have a go at this yourself. Now, as I said, I have made this so then it can fit in one of our standard envelopes wherever I have popped it. I'm sorry, I can't. Oops, there it is. So it will fit into one of our envelopes quite easily. But anyway, I hope you find that that was helpful and you make one yourselves. I'd love to see what you come up with. And just let me flip this camera over for one moment. It won't be a second. It may have been the grey granite twine I've used there. It was either smoky slate or grey granite. I can't remember which one's in the packet. It's in that pack of 4, and I don't think that they've actually tell you on the pack what the colours were. I have to look up the catalogue, Linny. But anyway, it still works within that black and white theme quite well. So, but anyway, thanks for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed that card. Don't forget, if you want to purchase any of these products that I've used today, you can from my website, which is michellejutrissa.stampinup.net, and my blog is butterfliesandbows.com, and I will have this posted up by the end of the weekend. So have a lovely day, and also this video will be posted on my YouTube channel as well, so if you want to go back and rewatch it for any of the instructions, you're quite welcome to. So I hope to see you again next Friday at 1 o'clock, and have a lovely week, and I'll see you then. Bye for now.